Right, I thought what I'd do is have a little bit of a look round on brokers. We did some work previously, and if I go and have a look at our particular zookeeper, which is on this particular IP address, and we look at the broker IDs, we can see how many brokers we've actually got. And if I then go and get a little bit more detail on those brokers, and in particular if I look at broker 0, then what we can see here is we can see where it is, where it's hosted. We can see the port number that it's using and so on and so forth. That's probably the useful stuff. If we go and have a look at broker 21, notice that broker 0 is on 192.168.1.235. We'll have a look at broker 21, see where that is. Broker 21 is actually on 215. Look, it's on a different server as expected, and it's actually using the same port number as 0, but on a different IP address. So just to have a look at the other two, so broker ID for number 2, and again that should be on 235. It is, but its port number is 9093. And if we have a look at broker 3, we should see the same sort of stuff. There it is, it's 235, it's port 9094. Now, to see that, what we need to really do is go and have a look in config, and in here we'll see a load of properties files. And if we have a look at, say, the zookeeper one to start off with, which I don't think is particularly big, so we'll just cat that one, zookeeper, and we can see here from my original cat, there is, most of this is hashed out. All we have here is a data directory, a port number which is 2181, and of course maximum. This is just disabling this you see this little note here. So the important one in essence is that and that really, in terms of where this is all sort of happening as far as the zookeeper is concerned. Right, let's clear that. So still in the same directory, what about if we cat the server properties? So a little bit more detail here, so we'll go back up to where we started that, in fact where we did start that. See what we're seeing in here is we've got some broker ID stuff in here, so we're fairly close to the top. There it is, there's the cat. And if we come down through all the hashes, the first thing of note is the broker ID, so that's the broker ID of 21. So that's the server that we've got on a particular device, and that sort of reinforces why we had to use the 192.168.1.235. So broker ID of 21, because we're actually on 192.168.1.215 as shown by the listeners. So I am remote to the zookeeper, which is on 235, but I'm using port number 9092 as expected. Also, other thing that you'll need to sort of check out here, if we come down, is we need to make sure that the logs are set correctly, and we also need to make sure that the zookeeper connection is also in there. So if you are deployed on the same server, then of course you can use localhost here and port number 2181. I'm not, therefore I need to use the full address. There we go. Good. Excellent. So that's because I'm coming in remotely in order to execute these commands. I could of course do these locally as well if I had an appropriate PuTTY terminal. So those are the main things you need to do. So it's the connection, the log file, the listening ports and address, and the broker ID. The broker ID must be unique, as indeed must be the port number, particularly if you're on. So port number and IP address have to be unique. So that's the bits and pieces that need to be checked out as far as that's concerned. Right, okay. So if we have another look, we can see that there's only one server here, and that server is the one that's on the remote machine. So let's pull up one of our other screens. In fact, let's bring this one into the mix. Let's see. In fact, no, we won't. We'll use this one. So on here, what it will do is do an ifconfig. It's probably going to be one of those ENP0S3 jobbies. It is. Yes, that's 235. So we're local now. So we could do the same sort of thing. So if we have a look where we are, we're in Kafka. So if we cd into the configs, we can have a look in here. Now we'll notice that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 server properties files. Okay, so let's have a look at one that we're using. We haven't used server 1 in our particular case because it's not showing up as one of the brokers. So we've got broker 0, broker 2, broker 3. Broker 21 is on the other one, the one we saw earlier. Right, and we've also got zookeeper here and zookeeper properties, and that'll be identical to what we saw before. So that's fine, okay, because the zookeeper is actually running here. And if you remember, the remote machine had to point back to this as part of its properties. So we'll have a look at this one. So just cat that one because it's, again, it's within reason. We'll just broaden the screen across so we can get that nice and neat. And we're going to go server to properties. So if we have a look back up through this file, back all the way up to the top, we'll see that what we've actually got is the sort of start of this is the broker ID. So the broker ID would be 0 to start with. I put a value of 2 in here. And as we come down, we can look at the listeners, and the listeners here I've actually set as you're on the local machine. Okay, same address, different port number. So the first server is 9092, as you can see, from the hashed out original stuff, and 9093 is the value that I've put in. So 9093 for this one. Server 3, the next one, would be 9094. Good. So then as we come down, we need to make sure in terms of logs, so here's the logging, make sure the logs are actually written to a different log file. Okay. So you can then actually see how each of the brokers is being supported, and you can see where the log directory is, /tump /tump, and then you'll find the log files itself. So the next thing that we need to have a look at really, so we've looked at broker, listeners, and the logs. The next thing you might want to look at is where we're actually going as far as the zookeeper is concerned. So what's the zookeeper connection? And the zookeeper connection is localhost 2181. So all the commands now should work here locally. Good, because we're on the local machine. Okay, so that's part and parcel of the configuration files that we can see in the config folder. So you need one for each of your brokers. So the easiest way to do that is just simply copy an existing one, give it a new name, and then go in, edit it, change the broker ID, change the listener port, even if it's on the same IP address, so change that listener port. You probably don't need to change the zookeeper, but you do need to change the log settings, so just modify that log entry within there. So when you then execute and build the server, what you would actually do is you would build that together with its properties file. Okay, and we did that in the previous videos, so go and have a look. So looking into this now, as we said before, we've got a number of brokers that are actually operational, including the remote one. And as we saw, the remote one, in terms of being on a different beastie, so ENP0S3 again, being on 215, when we look in here, it's only the server properties that I'm interested in. And again, when I look at those server properties, I then remember I have to tell it, as far as the zookeeper is concerned, make that connection back to zookeeper. When I log in, I need to make sure that my broker ID is unique, which I've done, because you'll be talking to the same zookeeper, so it needs some reference, and of course its IP address and what it's listening. So I can effectively communicate with this broker as a producer or a consumer via that IP address and that port. It in turn will be under the control of zookeeper. So I will use that address rather than the zookeeper's address in terms of where I point my producers and my consumers. So we can see that in just a mo. So that's the sort of stuff that you could see as far as the brokers are concerned. Now we can actually go in and of course we can remove those. So if we just come out of this and go into the bins, if we look in here, there's a number of commands that we've used, and earlier doors we've used some of these commands. So we can see down here Kafka, let's look for Kafka server. There's Kafka server stop and there's Kafka server start. So this is the way to neatly stop a running server. So they actually run the server again using its properties file to identify it. So that'll be the parameter that you send with that as a Kafka server stop. Now I'm not going to do that, but I will show you the command to do that. So there it is, there's the command. As I said, I'm not going to actually enter this. I don't want to stop the server, but this will actually stop the server with that server properties file. So that's actually telling us which server we want to stop. Good, okay. To make absolutely sure we don't want that. Apologies for the bells. There might be an occasion where something goes rogue, so we might need to go and find it. So what we could do is essentially look for it in terms of its process. So if we, I'll just bring this command in. Oops, bring it in once rather than twice does help. We can see if there's a server 2. There it is, that's server 2. We did this on a previous video, so I'm not going to do it here. And there's its process ID, so we can actually kill that. But as I've shown you, the ideal way is to use that server stop, and that will do things hopefully nicely for us. And again, remember the sort of general command to use when trying to make, see what's actually out there. So we can use this ls brokers IDs, and we can actually then see, make sure we've set that correctly. No, we haven't, because we're in the configs, so we need to come out of there and then into bin. Job done. These are all the little foibles as we go along. Okay, so fine, 0, 2, 3 and 21 are there as we've shown. So we could stop those, we could start them again, and then that will obviously then have an impact on the available servers. So of course we'll have to stop it where it is, so you'd have to obviously execute the command on the appropriate server in order to perform that correctly. Right, that'll do it for this little video, so we'll move on and do something else in the next one. Bye for now.